So Desmond, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Just want to ask you a couple of quick questions to see if we can dive into how you've got to where you are today, and if there's anything that might help me get over my challenge. Because, as you know, I'm going to swim the English Channel in August 2026, so it's going to be a big challenge for me. So tell us about yourself. Who are you and what's your story?
So, as you said, my name's Elsa. I am a 2022 Winter Olympian, and I'm also a doctor in emergency medicine in the north of Iceland.
Wow. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. How do you go about balancing the two?
It's time management. I have to plan everything a long way in advance. So we're already planning the Olympic season, which will start in October 2025, and we're obviously in December 2024. So everything's planned a long way ahead. I've already booked the time off from work, already made my work aware of what dates I need, already planned the training schedule broadly for the summer, and then we'll do the fine details later on.
Wow, that is a lot. So somewhere in between you fit life. Yeah. Standard, boring old life.
To some degree, as much as I can.
That's brilliant. So how does someone get started, and how did you get started in luge?
So I saw luge in the 2006 Winter Olympics in Turin, Torino, and there was no British athletes, there was no Irish athletes. And so I thought, right, I'm going to do that. I fell in love with the balance of speed and agility and skill and adrenaline and calm that you get with luge. But then I contacted the British team and they said I was too young. I contacted the Irish Olympic Committee and they said, we don't do luge. So I kept contacting them every year. And then eventually, when I was a teenager, I was able to go out with the British military as a civilian to a military camp and try luge. And then from there, I did my junior career with the British team. And then in my first year just after my first season of senior, I switched across to the Irish team. Britain had a change of coaching staff. It didn't really work for me. And so I switched across and we founded the Irish Luge Federation in 2019. And the rest is history. Wow,
that's a long old time as well. To go from your dream starting in 2006 to 2019 and now 2026 Olympics.
Yeah, it was all worth it though. It was all worth it.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So between the 4 years of the Olympic periods, what are you doing in those 4 years? Because presumably it gets pretty heavy concentration on, right, okay, next Olympics is coming up, like you said, all the planning. But how do you look to improve on your next Olympics? Because you've got to push for higher up the rankings and things like that.
Yeah, so like many Winter Olympic sports, we don't just compete in the Olympics. In between the 4 years, we have World Cups every season. We have about 9 races. We then have the World Championships in every non-Olympic year, and we have the European Championships every year as well. So I'm going from race to race. It's not just about the Olympics, and it's about setting targets in between. Yeah. So I'm aiming for this season, I'm aiming to be top 30 in the world. Last season, I had a similar aim. Last season, I wanted to get into World Cup every week from the Nations Cup, which is our Friday race. So it's about setting the targets in between and building up that ladder of targets, of smaller targets that then get you towards the Olympics.
Wow, that's brilliant. And you're halfway through the current season at the moment. So what is it that you've noticed already in this half of the season that you'll try and put in the next half of the season?
So one of the big things for me is always psychology. Mentally, I've always struggled with race day performance. It's something that we've worked on for a very long time through my career. It's getting better, and this season it's definitely been progress from last season. But that's always the big aim for me going into the second half of the season is to be relaxed on the sled and put in those performances on race day. Yeah. But currently sitting 31 in the world, I'd like to finish in the top 30. So some work needs to happen between now and then.
Yeah, sounds like hard work. So you're obviously training a lot in freezing cold conditions. And from what I've seen of your videos, you're not wearing a particularly warm suit. How do you go about doing that in freezing conditions?
So we're quite lucky in luge in that we have a building at the start and a building at the finish, which are both heated. And so you are in the warm-up building, you come out 2-3 minutes before you slide for a minute. You maybe have a minute at the finish where you're on the radio and getting feedback from your coaches and things like that. And then you go into the finish house, which is nice and warm. So we're quite lucky. You're only outside for about 5 to 10 minutes. The other thing is we are wearing Lycra, but we have quite a bit of clothing under the Lycra. Right. So I am wearing thermals. If it's particularly cold, I might wear 2 sets of thermals. I'm also wearing a lead vest, which adds body weight, lead shorts, a neck strap. So there's a lot of things going on underneath that suit. It's not quite as tight as it looks.
I didn't realise you wear lead stuff as well. Why? What's the purpose of that?
So weight equals momentum. So we want to be heavy. If you're under 75 kilograms as a woman, under 90 kilos as a man, you can add a bit of lead weight to yourself, and that's done through shorts and also through a vest.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's interesting. So in your whole journey to get where you are today, who's sort of been instrumental in helping you get there?
So I'm quite different to a lot of athletes because I'm a small country and I'm from a federation which I run.
Yeah.
So most of the federation work is done by me. I'm currently not in a partnership. I used to be in a partnership. So that meant I travelled and trained with Romania for 2 years, and that was fantastic. But unfortunately, that just hasn't been able to continue. So I'm now part of a small nations team. So like myself, we've got an athlete from New Zealand, we've got an athlete from Estonia, we've got an athlete from Finland. So all these smaller nations come together with 1 or 2 coaches. So I've currently got 2 coaches this season that I share with the other small nation athletes. And then outside of that, my biggest support network is my family. My mum helps me a huge amount with running the federation. She does a lot of work in the background. In the past, I've also worked with sports psychologists, nutritionists, physiotherapists. But because I'm fully self-funded, I have to pick and choose when I use those resources, and I'm not sort of using those at the moment.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing, really, because when you get out there, it's certainly just you that's going down the run, but obviously it takes a lot of other people to help you get there, keep you going.
Yeah, there's a lot of work going on in the background.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So, what do I need to do based on all your determination and all you've gone through? Because although you do a sprint event, you've kept this endurance up for years and years now. I do an endurance event like this swim across the channel. How do you think I need to mentally prepare myself or physically prepare myself to get me to the other side?
I think it is a long time before your swim. It's going to come around really quickly, but it is over a year. So I think it's setting smaller targets between now and then.
Okay.
I think it's setting, right, I'm going to build up to this distance, and then the next target will be this, and the next target will be this. I think if you just keep one target, it's hard because it feels so far away.
Yeah.
So for me, with the Olympics, that's still quite a way away. Obviously, after the last Olympics, it was 4 years away.
Yeah.
So I was putting all these smaller targets in place in the meantime, so that I had smaller things to focus on and achieve.
Okay, so yeah, bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the biggest thing is planning. You need to have a really solid plan in, and you need to know, right, if things go wrong here, I still have these options. If things go wrong at this point, we still have these options. And you have those backups, and you have those other ways of still getting to where you want to be, even if the primary plan doesn't work. So if you pick up an injury, or if this race doesn't go to plan, then you still have ways of getting there, which was a big thing for us, is having contingency plans.
Right, okay. Because that's certainly an essential part of the planning I need to do. And I kind of have to some extent. I've got probably 7 events next year planned already. But certainly I need to probably break it down even further and plan some more training within those periods as well. Okay, that's interesting. Moving on to what we do in the sport. So your sport is high risk. There's been quite a few injuries. My sport is high risk as well. You know, there's certainly been history there. So how do you mentally get over that risk? Because, you know, you hurt yourself. It could be dangerous.
So I've worked with a sports psychologist in the past, as I mentioned. I'm not working with one at the moment, but I have worked with various through my career. And one of the big things for me is always focusing on what's happening now. Worrying about something that may or may not happen in the future is something that I've definitely had an issue with in the past. I've been thinking about, what if I crash, or what if this happens, or what if that happens in that corner. Until it's happening, I try not to worry about it. So it's very much focusing on what's happening now and controlling what's happening now.
Right.
I can control things in the moment, or what's going to happen in 5 seconds time. I can't control what's going to happen in 15 corners when I'm in curve 1. So it's controlling what I can control, and then also an element of accepting the things that I can't. So if you're swimming and there's a load of jellyfish, you can't change that. If I'm sliding and suddenly there's snow, I can't change that. So one of the big things for me is accepting the things that I can't control, and then focusing on the things that I can when they're happening, not worrying about the things that are in the future.
Yeah, I suppose that's critical, and certainly I've learned a bit of that from my previous swimming history, doing sprints, where I don't think about the next race. I'm thinking about the current race, on the blocks, okay, what do I need to do? I need to push hard, I need to swim hard, I need to turn hard, all those things. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Brilliant. Final question then. I'm doing this swim for charity as well as myself, but might as well raise some money for charity while I'm doing it. Is there a small charity that means something to you that it'd be great if I could give some money to?
So I would say Endometriosis UK. They're a fantastic charity. Endometriosis affects a huge number of women, and they're doing a lot of research into trying to find better treatments and ways of managing such a life-changing condition for so many women.
Brilliant. Sounds like a great cause. Thanks for joining me today.
No
Appreciate
problem
your
at all.
time.
Thank you.